to another episode of Diner Talks with James. I'm James, and I'm super pumped to be here with you all. Slide into the diner booth, my friends. Let's get it going. How's your 2022 going so far? Well, I hope so. And if it's not, well, here we are. I'm super pumped to be here and kicking it with you all. I have an awesome guest that I want to just jump right into. He has become a dear friend of mine over the last, I would say, 2 years. We're in a mastermind group together that just tells stories, and we critique each other's stories and improve our storytelling ability. And getting to hear bits and pieces of this man's story has just had me fall in love with him more and more. And the first time I ever met him in person, I don't know if I've ever gotten a better hug. I'll be honest with you. It just got me, brought it in for the real thing. And so let me tell you about Dr. James Smith Jr. He passionately works with learners, providing high-performance solutions in areas of leadership, authenticity, diversity and inclusion, personal presentation skills, and personal power. He's authored 3 books, with his last book, No Excuse Guide to Success, being nominated for an NAACP Image Award. Casual, y'all, casual. Dr. James possesses ridiculous optimism. He comes up with something called JIMPACT. I think I understand what that means, but we'll probably ask him about it anyway. He has relentless determination modeled by his mother, Rebecca Nancy Smith. Shout out to Rebecca. He's the perfect example of this is when he attended pre-K through senior year of high school without missing one single class. Y'all, I need a nap just reading this. I'm excited to get to hang out with him. I'm excited for you to meet him. Let's bring him out right now. Dr. James Smith Jr.
Listen, man, I have never laughed so hard during an introduction. What? I'm dusting off because I just slid into the diner. Okay, I slid in. Let me dust off a little bit. What's up, my brother?
My man. What a pleasure to see you. Rocking a little 3-piece over here. Always fresh. Even in the diner, right? Got the top button unbuttoned though, because it's still the diner, right? We can relax a little bit.
You know, I was considering wearing my tie, but when I got into the diner, I said, no, this isn't about ties. Let me take this off and get comfortable. Exactly. So we're good. We're good.
That tie is just going to get syrup on it. So take it off.
It's off. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, man. I'm truly doing great. Things are starting to melt in Minnesota, so it's a slushy mess, and it means that it's also ice every time you wake up in the morning, which petrifies me. But we're doing great. I'm carrying my son out to take him to daycare, and I am just walking like a penguin because I was like, it's bad enough when I fall, but holding him, I can't do that. Wow. So, we're so far we're doing so good, man. How about you? How are you today?
Man, I'm good, and I'm especially good because I grew up in the 60s and the 70s, and during the 70s is when Lionel Richie and the Commodores began to cut their teeth in music. And they made a song that I fell in love with, and I always wondered, who were they thinking about? Now I realize they were thinking about you.
Oh, yeah?
Easy like a Sunday morning.
That I'm easy.
There you go. So now I know who they had in mind. Robo, easy like a Sunday morning.
I think you can appreciate this. My dad says, James, there's not enough O's in smooth for you.
Now I know who Stuart Scott was thinking about when he said, cooler than the other side of the pillow. What?
That's it. Booyah. Rest in peace to a legend.
Thank you so much for welcoming to the diner. I look forward to coming back again and again and again.
That's it. I appreciate you, man. Since we are in the diner, I'm wondering, a question I always love to start this off with is if we, if you had the opportunity to have a late night meal, and you could go back to when you were younger, maybe when you used to eat late night meals yourself, but what was your late night go-to meal? You grew up in the Philly arena, and so you're no stranger to a diner, and so, but what was your favorite late night move typically?
Done. 3 eggs over easy, a little bit of salt and pepper. Now, since I'm older, no salt, and T-bone, medium. What? 3 over easy, T-bone, and a little bit of real thin fries. I'm good. I'm good. And keep the cranberry juice coming in the lemonade. Keep it coming. And sometimes you can mix the cranberry with the lemonade. I'm good.
Yeah, we call
I'm
those
good.
good nights.
Oh
You got
yeah.
steak and eggs coming out here. I appreciate that. I appreciate that.
Now,
Uh,
if they didn't have that, I used to love going to the International House of Pancakes,
mm,
and there was nothing like a midnight international omelet. Omelet with everything on it.
uh-huh.
Green peppers, tomatoes, onions, cheese, mozzarella cheese. What?
You
Mm.
loaded the thing came up looking like it was going to explode when it landed on you in front of you.
Well, at midnight, no one's going to care. I'm
Yeah,
walking out nice and full, ready to go to bed.
ready to go. Keeping that caloric intake up.
And working on that itis. I got it. I got it.
Uh-huh.
The
You
itis kicks
always.
in.
I love that. I love that. So, I'm here for that too. I'm a pancakes guy in the diner, which is great. To
Mm,
date, the day that we're recording this is actually National Pancake Day.
yes.
So a fitting day for us to be in the diner.
Well, if I'm going to do pancakes, they have to be chocolate chip pancakes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
Exactly. But if I am at IHOP, sometimes I'll get that Cinestack. Those cinnamon
Oh.
bun ones those are pretty
Ooh.
good.
Can you say suicide? A cinestat, right? Okay. Good luck with that.
Cinecide. Um, I love it, brother. I love it. So, Dr. James, you're born and raised. Where exactly were you born and raised? And tell me a little bit about who Dr. James was, or just James at that point.
Should I do the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air version or keep it very standard?
Yeah,
Because if you want
probably
me to
the
do the
Fresh
Fresh
Prince.
Prince, it's
Yeah.
West Philadelphia, born and raised on the playgrounds where I spent most of my days. But if I do it more traditional, yes, West Philadelphia. I was the oldest of two to James Smith Sr. and Nancy Smith. And that lasted for 11 years. My parents were divorced, and mom wore both hats and raised both me and my brother. We're 4 years apart.
Mm-hmm.
And it was some journey. My mother didn't drive, and we did not have a car. So when we traveled, it was public transportation, regardless of the weather. And James, I remember a number of rainy or winter days when we stood in a phone booth, the three of us, waiting for the bus or the trolley to come, or take a taxi cab. But those were some character building days. And to describe my mother, and this is probably before your time, I don't know if you saw the movie The Officer and the Gentleman. The Officer and the Gentleman with Lou Gossett, Richard Gere. Lou Gossett played the role of a drill sergeant, a ridiculously mean, tough drill sergeant.
Yeah.
And I kid with people that if they ever needed a stand-in for that role, my mom, they wouldn't skip a beat. They would not skip a beat. Rebecca Nancy Smith would get in there and come on, mayonnaise. Come on, mayonnaise. That's what Richard Gere was, mayo. They called him mayonnaise. But because of that tough love and that character building love, I attended K through 12 without missing a day of school. And she taught me to always don't just sit in the front of the class, tilt the room, let them know you're there, make sure your hand is up, and be a difference maker, game changer. And I didn't realize she was getting me ready for adulthood, not the way she did. And you mentioned one of my books, The No Excuse Guide. Think about that. No excuses. Tough love parent. They go hand in hand.
Mm-hmm.
So she was allergic to excuses, and I'm allergic to excuses as well.
Well, I love that. Well, as a fellow D9 MPHC member, we know a lot about excuses and what they mean. So no excuses for sure. They are indeed tools of the incompetent.
Yes.
So yeah, that's incredible. So you said that you and your brother 4 years apart. Were you all close? Are you close?
You know what's funny? We were close and we are close. He's actually the CFO for my organization. He's my business partner. And growing up, he was my baseball opponent, my basketball opponent, my hockey opponent, football. We would turn our living room and dining room into a multi-unit facility where we would play basketball, baseball while mom was at work, and we can turn those couches around, put pillows down for bases, puff basketball, full court. And that house is still alive today. Those hardwood floors are still intact. They look real small now. They look like the old Boston Garden, where back then when we were young, it looked like the Houston Astrodome. But we did it. We did. I love my brother Rodney tremendously, and he's always respected me, and I have respected him in kind. So now we get a chance to work together every day.
That's beautiful. That's awesome. Sometimes those family working relationships don't work out too well, but it sounds like you and Rodney got it dialed in. That's awesome.
We had to have a couple come to Jesus conversations, though. As they say, don't get it twisted. Yeah. We had to have a couple come down Front Street. Let's talk about how we're going to do this, because this is a business. Although family business, it's a business, and we both have to be accountable for each other, and we have. Yeah. We have stood the test of time.
That's incredible. I mean, you're talking about those experiences of you all standing, what a visual, you all huddled in the phone booth waiting for the bus or the cab or anything like that to come, right? Like y'all been through some stuff, you've seen some stuff, but you say they're character building times, but in the moment, you don't know that you're building character. It's just life. Yeah. Right. And so, in those moments, did you, I guess as you look back at those and putting yourself back in those shoes, did you know that you all had it rough? Did you know that it was, that you were in a tough spot? Or was it something that, your mom, the way your mom talked about it was just like, this is where we're at and this is how we're doing it? Like, what kind of emotions were going through you as you reflected about yourself in that time?
James, it was all of the above. All of the above. Yes, we knew we had it bad, but we believed that some others had it worse. Mm-hmm. I mean, when we were in our first place together, and this is the place we lived with my father, sometimes I thought it was 4th of July every day. Why? Because the mousetrap. Yes, Mickey and his friends did not do well in our 1.5 bedroom apartment that was over top of another house, as well as I wish we had partnered with Major League Baseball, because when there is rain coming down, the people come out, put the tarp over the field so it doesn't get wet. Yeah. Wow. When it rained at our house, buckets. So the buckets were in every room coming down. Where were the grounds crew to come and help us out? So we knew we had it bad, but we were living. Mm-hmm. We were situationally happy. Every Christmas, there was something big under the tree, multiple things. And I'm smiling because I remember the time I realized, okay, if there are any kids listening, cover your ears. Cover your ears now, I said, when I realized, Mom and Dad, they're Santa. Because my father asked me to go to his bedroom, and get his slippers. They're underneath the bed. So I ran in there. I'm like 7, 8, 9 years old, slid down, saw the slippers, and then a pool table behind the slippers. What? A pool table? Yes, Daddy, Mom, Santa Claus. So for the next year or so, James, right after Thanksgiving, it was like an Easter egg hunt at my house. I'm looking at every closet, under beds, under cabinets. I'm like, where's my Christmas gifts?
Oh, no.
But my mom would always say to focus on what you have and not on what you don't have. So regardless of how bad things got, she said, you have your health, you have a roof over your head, you have love. And I've kept that mindset throughout my life, because even when the pandemic started, and being a professional speaker and doing 100% of my solutions or my presentations in person, initially I started focusing on what I couldn't do. Yeah. Not in front of people anymore, rather than focusing on what I could do. And once I made that shift, that's when the business shifted as well. I could do virtual. I could coach virtually. I can do everything that I do in person, I could do virtually. And that mindset emanated from 4620 Sansom Street in West Philadelphia, and then eventually Southwest Philadelphia, where we thought we were the Jeffersons, moving on up Fishbowl Fry in the kitchen. We moved into a neighborhood that was around the University of Penn's campus.
Yeah, sure.
And the character building aspect of that move was that we moved without my father. My mom's plan was to take us out of school half day because she didn't want us to miss school, and come home, move before my father got home from work. And what led to that move was that my father, as charismatic and friendly, as fun-loving as he was, he also had a bad habit, and that he loved to drink. And when he drank too much, he would eventually come home wasted and either fall asleep on the chairs, fall asleep on the steps if he didn't make it up those 14 steps to our place, or he would come home looking for the alcohol that he would hide underneath chairs and behind toilets and all that stuff. My mom would find it and she would pour it out. And when he realized she had poured it out, he would commence to wanting to hit her and beat her.
Yeah.
Well, I saw the domestic violence, and I was 11. My mom said, "No more. We're out. We're out." And I missed him. Well, put it this way, I missed his good side. He had two sides: an egregious, unfathomable, awful side, and an amazing, charismatic, light up the room. Fats, his nickname, Fats, is in the house. And sports, singing, dancing, and James, even speaking, I think I attribute to my dad because he turned me on to the singing group, the Jackson Six. So it was Tito, Michael, Marlon, Jackie, Jermaine, and James. And I would do concerts in the living room. I would hold the brush to sing, get a broom to play the guitar, and set up my G.I. Joe and my Rock'em Sock'em robots and my stuffed animals on the couch. They were the audience. And I was ABC. It's the easiest 1, 2, 3. That's how I was raised.
Oh man, I love this Jackson 6. Y'all catch that? I hope y'all caught that. With the broom and the guitar, oh man, you took me right in there. I could picture it. What a powerful turn of events, and your mom having the courage to leave. Yes. Right. And knowing that she had to get out. And I also appreciate the way that you talk about your father, right? That, not everybody's completely bad. And he had some really beautiful qualities. What was it that drove him to drinking? Was it, a lot of people don't drink because they don't feel like they're in control of other parts of their lives, or, what was it that you think sparked the drinking in your father?
I can only tell you what he shared with my mom, because when they got together and got married, he did not drink. He actually went to the service for a bit, was honorably discharged with some sort of medical injury. But then he got his first job, and he went to work for a meat packing place. He was a butcher. And he told my mom that he worked in the freezer all day and he froze his butt off, and him and his coworkers, as a way of heating up, would go to the local bar, get some drinks to warm up after a day of freezing. And that became the routine, and the warm up became a way of life, to the point where it impacted just about everything he did. But he was a functioning alcoholic. He was able to go to work on time, show up all the time, because he's very principled. But coming home at night, we didn't know what time he was going to get home. And James, there were a number of times where I would put my knees on the couch, look out the window, and I could see the train station. And the train station was maybe 2.5 blocks from our home. And I would watch him stumble walk in a very 5 to 10 minute walk, short walk, would sometimes take him a half hour. And I would hear the keys going in the door and then falling, then going in the door and then falling. And eventually he would get in. And of course, kids will be kids. So from time to time, when I was outside playing with my friends, one or two of them would say, "Let's imitate James's dad." walking down the street.
Oh,
And then
no.
that would lead to a fight or two. But that was, I would say, from 63, 64 all the way until 72.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I still remember it like it happened yesterday. And I'm 60 years old now, and that was a long time ago, but it played a role in who I am today. And I think about it to get fuel so that people can see that regardless of the hand you're dealt, regardless of the circumstances, the situation, you are in control of your life. Because, James, people will say from time to time, I'm this way because this is the way I was raised. Well, I was raised to be an alcoholic. I was raised to beat my wife. I was raised to do some unfathomable things, but I didn't do it.
Mhm.
I chose the good stuff, singing with my Jackson brothers, using a brush as a microphone, looking for, it's ironic, I use those stuffed animals and my rock'em sock'em robots and my G.I. Joes as the audience members. When the pandemic started trending, I did what Major League Sports did. They had cardboard cutouts in the stands. I took pictures of my family members and taped them to cardboard and taped it to my laptop. So I had my family in front of me as I was presenting, similar to what I did in my adolescence.
I love that. That's incredible. Yeah, it's so fascinating the way those stories we all have those little moments where it's like, hey, tell me you were you before you knew you were you, right? And like some of those moments of you holding the brush microphone, and like you said, setting up the rock'em sock'em robot, the audience, and you know where anybody who knows you now are like, of course you did that, right? Of course, like, sure. Right. There's a story of me. There was a stump we lived on a corner, and there was a tree that had gotten taken down because it had gotten a disease, and we couldn't afford to get the stump removed, or it was super expensive or whatnot. So we just kind of did in stages. And so we had this stump there for a while, and I would ask my mom every day after school to go outside and sit on the stump so I could say hi to people as they walked by. Right. And people were like, of course you did, James. Of course you did. you obnoxious extrovert.
Of course you did. Of course you did.
I love what your mom said about you going to school, sit in the front of the room, ask questions, make your presence known, tilt the room. And you didn't know that she was preparing you for the real world. Yeah. And there's some people who, when their mom says things like that, they're like, yeah, whatever, mom, sit in the back of the room and talk to the boys, whatever. But you believed your mother. You leaned into what your mother said. I mean, that's part of that is because you're the oldest and you're therefore the rule follower. Right. Yes. But you developed this work ethic, and sports were also something that you leaned heavily into.
Yeah.
And you wound up getting really passionate about football, right? Tell me about that.
Yeah. I'll give you this first, and then I'll tell you about my love of football. I'm 12 years old. I'm playing for a little league baseball team, age 10 to 12, neighborhood team. Everyone wanted to play for that team. And it was the dream of that time, me making the Jayhawks. Long story, real short. The Jayhawks are in the championship. We're tied 1-1, best 2 out of 3. And it's the bottom of the 7th. And of course I lead off, and it's my story. I get a hit. I'm on first. And my coach gives me the signal not to steal second. And of course, I listen. And 2 outs later, my listening becomes impaired. And I did not pay attention to the signals. And I stole second. And of course, he yelled at me. Next batter hits a base hit to center field. I'm rounding third. I get the stop sign. I run right through that stop sign. I'm going to be the hero. Wow. I knew this is going to be a story that I can tell as a motivational speaker. I needed content. I was working on content at 12. So as I'm rounding third, heading home, the ball from center field moves, soars right by me, right into the catcher's mitt. The catcher is there. He's waiting for me to arrive at home. Mm-hmm. And the funny part about this story is that the catcher at age 12 looked like he was 36. James, he had a mustache. He had a beard. His chest protector looked like a bib. I swear he looked like Shaquille O'Neal would look at 12. That was Baby Shaq. Baby Shaq. And through the course of the season, whenever he played that team, I would tell our coach, check his birth certificate. Check his birth certificate. That's a man. That's a grown behind man. Anyway, I knew if I slid, I would be out. If I ran in and just stood up, I would be out. There's only one thing to do. My mother said, all things are possible. You got to make it happen. Tilt the room. The only thing to do was to knock him down. Little skinny Jimmy with the big head was going to knock down Baby Shaq. And I ran in there, and he had the ball, and I hit him. And like ice cream on a cone on a 300-degree day, I just slithered down his body. And my teammate said, touch the plate, touch the plate. And if that TV show was out during that time, I would have said, what you talking about, Bruce? But it wasn't out yet. But I did touch the plate. And the umpire said, you're safe. What? My impact caused Baby Shaq to drop the ball. So I was safe. He dropped the ball. And that run through the wall, run through challenges mindset played a role in my love of football. And I played Little League. I played high school. I played college. Won the national championship in 1981, Widener University. Yes, I wore number 22. Tried out for 3 pro football teams. Did not make it. And finally settled for my first corporate job as a copywriter in our marketing department because my undergrad degree was in English. I went on to get my master's in journalism and then eventually get my doctorate in business administration with a research study of authenticity at work.
All from running into Baby Shaq.
Yes.
Like ice cream dripping down a cone on a 300-degree day.
Yes. And my friends would say, of course you did that. Of course you did that. You weren't going to try to fake him out and run around. Yeah. You said it's possible. I'm standing outside in phone booths in the snow waiting for the taxi. Baby Shaq, getting ready for you.
You've been running through walls your whole life, man.
Now, here's another spin on that. Mom calls me one day. I'm in the car. I'm sitting in the parking lot of Wegmans. And she called me. She said, you have a copy of your book with you? Of course, Mom. I carry my books with me all the time. I said, no, I'm serious. I said, yeah, Mom. They're in the trunk. Why? I want you to turn to page 32. Like, why, Mom? There's a misspelling. And what could I do now? You can call your publisher and tell them immediately that your mother said, make the change. And then later on, James, we're on the phone and she asked me, how are things going? I said, Mom, you know me. I'm knocking down every challenge. I'm knocking down every wall. And she said, occasionally it's all right to walk around the wall rather than knocking it down. It may save you a few years in your life. Like, oh boy. Okay. Got to make the adjustment.
No one sent for you, Mom. No one sent. Yeah.
And she's 80. She is still doing well, 80 going on 20. And back in 2018, I did the unfathomable. I faced one of my fears. I went skydiving and things worked out. Long story short, I'm not even going to get into it, but I did successfully land. And I called her afterwards. I didn't call her beforehand because I thought she would say, don't do it.
Yep.
I called her afterwards. I told her I did it. It's like, wow, you beat me to it. I want to do it. I want to do it. Before I leave this earth, I'm going skydiving. And I'm glad you did it so you could tell me all about it. I'm like, what? Of course she said it.
Yeah, of course. You beat me to it. That's awesome. I love it. I love it. So we're playing football. And was football the goal at the time? You're like, hey, I really do want to, I'm gunning for the pros. And like everything else was option B.
Real simple, James. Here was the dream. Play pro football, retire, and do a combination of write for Sports Illustrated, go back to my high school and teach English and coach football. And in my spare time, do the booth at Monday Night Football. And that would be it. Sports Illustrated, coach football, teach English, and do Monday Night Football with my background degree in English and journalism.
Yeah.
Well, it didn't work out that way. Didn't make the pros. Didn't make Monday Night Football. I did submit several articles to Sports Illustrated, and they said they were good, but they weren't Sports Illustrated ready, that I should be a stringer for some neighborhood newspapers, or in fact, travel outside Philadelphia, go to a different state, different city, and get some experience writing sports, and then come back. And I was impatient. I didn't want to do that. So I looked for a job and got my real first job working for the Prudential Insurance Company of America as a copywriter in the marketing department. And our client was AARP, the American Association of Retired Persons, and I'm a proud AARP member now.
The world comes full circle. Did anybody else think he was about to say his client was going to be Sports Illustrated? That's what I was. That's awesome.
So that was the goal. I wanted to give back. Our high school, although I was in a great program, it was called Motivation. It was geared for college-bound students. It was a high school that was half near Drexel's campus, Drexel University, and half in the hood. And the part of the hood it was near was called The Bottom. Can you imagine living in a place called The Bottom? And our football field, or our field behind the school where we practiced, was 50 yards of dirt, glass, cement, rocks. And when we practiced, varsity, junior varsity football, varsity, junior varsity soccer, varsity, junior varsity field hockey, all on the field at the same time practicing. No home games.
Wow.
The only home games we had were basketball, baseball, and football. Every game was on the road. Talk about character building. That's why I don't do excuses. I lived a life of challenge. What?
Yeah. Talk about it, brother. Talk about it. No home games. That's crazy.
We never had a homecoming. We had a go coming, not a homecoming, right. A go coming. We're going to go to somebody else's place.
That's impressive. That is different than the way I grew up, believe it or not.
Do tell. Give me a little about that.
Yeah, no, I mean, we just, I grew up upper middle class, right? I wasn't sitting in the phone booth. The only time I was going to a phone booth is then, my mom was still cheap though, even though we had a little bit of money. So my mom, whenever I left golf practice, she said, "I want you to call me collect from the phone booth, but instead of, I'm not going to accept the call, but you just say ready to be picked up when they say, what's your name?" And so
that's good.
So we said ready to be picked. And then I just had to hope that my mom answered the phone. I had no idea. And then she would hang up on me and I would just wait and be like, well, see if she was, I don't even know if she was home. But yeah, that's about the closest I got to perseverance as a young kid. So, but yeah, the phrase started from the bottom. Now we're here. I'm more akin to the phrase of started from here and now I'm here. And that's just, and you can't help the way you grew up or what what your parents did. My dad also, ironically worked for Prudential, but he was on the insurance side of stuff, the broker side or the underwriting side. So yeah, that's funny. You'll very good chance that you worked at Prudential at the same time. But yeah, I mean, that's the world that I grew up in, for sure. And so, but you can't help the way that you grew up, and it was what it was. And I would say that because I was raised certainly with a silver spoon in my mouth, the concept of being grateful for what I had and working hard for everything that I wanted wasn't necessarily something that was taught. It was something I had to learn, right? Because it wasn't a daily practice. And it's not to say that I was spoiled. We just had enough, right? We had what we needed. My parents weren't out there buying me everything I wanted. I asked for every single video console that came out. I wanted a Nintendo, then a Sega Genesis, and a Super Nintendo. Then I wanted an N64. Then I wanted, right? And like, they would never get me anything. They never got. So by the time I got my first job as an RA in college, I said, I'm buying an Xbox. And spent my whole first paycheck on an Xbox just out of spite. So yeah, I mean, but still, like that was my quote unquote struggle, was that mom wouldn't buy me a Nintendo, right?
That's funny. What I love about what you're saying, and this, I hope people are listening closely, because when George Floyd was murdered, a number of my white friends and white colleagues reached out to me and said, what can I do? What can I do? What can I do? And here I am listening to you saying, upper middle class, things materialized, wasn't hard, but you are probably, if not the most, one of the most woke white American people that I know. And you didn't have to be, you chose to be. But when all these folks called me up, what to do, it was bittersweet, because I'm thinking, why don't you know what to do? You can run with the bulls. You can go mountain climbing, hiking, bungee jumping, plan vacations, plan weddings, and you don't know how to be empathetic with a person of color? What? It was bittersweet. And as I hear your story, and I already thought you were so woke, and you're very principled, and I'm looking at your background, the Black Lives Matter. That's one of the reasons why you got that crazy heart-to-heart hug, because I believe in heart hugs. I was hugging you because I'm like, I love this guy. I love him. I've only known him for a few years, but he is. Evander Holyfield wasn't the real deal. James is the real deal. Okay. All right. I'm just saying.
Oh, shoot. Take a whole new level to bending people's ears with the Evander Holyfield reference.
That's good. That's good.
Thank you, man.
I did that because I was a temp. So I want to make sure I did that. My terrible version imitation of Mike Tyson.
I appreciated it. I appreciated it. And thank you for the love, man. I appreciate it. But you talk about it's a cool segue, because you do talk about in your work, you talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion, and that wasn't necessarily something that you were always passionate about, or something that you just you lived, right? Just what you lived on both sides of the coin, and as someone in corporate America who was making real money, but someone who grew up the way that you did, and looked the way you did, lived the way you did, and whatnot. So, how did you go from being in corporate America to this being a passion area of yours? That's so much so that you left corporate America and decided to get on some stages to talk about it.
Yeah. Growing up, I was in a number of situations where I realized my race was not the best tool in the box. My middle school was in a neighborhood that people would call poor white trash, but it was a school for smart kids. And me and a couple of friends, we used public transportation to travel into a seedy part of Philadelphia that was called Kensington. And there were a number of teenagers, boys, white guys who had dropped out of school. And every day they woke up to beat up the black kids who traveled into school. And if they didn't get us in the morning when we traveled home, they would attempt to beat us up before we got to the train station. So I experienced that for 2 years. That was egregious. Went on to high school, all black high school, graduated in the top 5%. Went to college, all white high school. I mean, all white college, very, very different. And that's when in order to fit in, I accepted the nickname Jim. And I went from James to Jim. I wanted to fit in. So I knew after college, moving into corporate, which was predominantly white, that I had to really make a difference. I had to stand out. And as my mother once said, people have guns, don't give them bullets. And you give them a bullet when you're late, when you don't turn in an assignment, when you're not where you're supposed to be, when you're out after midnight, because nothing good happens after midnight. You are representing, unfortunately, you are representing your race, because when minorities fail, they fail as a group. When they succeed as individuals. So if you mess up, they're not going to say, he's a bad guy. They're going to say, see, they can't do it around here. They can't perform. They can't make it happen. That was my mindset throughout corporate. And then eventually, I would say, I think it was my 7th or 8th year in, my manager came to me with a special project. You remember those special projects? Those character building
opportunity, quote unquote.
Yes, supposedly promotion-centric opportunities.
Yes.
She asked me to head our organization's diversity council and play a role in helping the organization during this initiative. And I'm not going to bore you with the long story how that came to fruition, but essentially she asked me 3 times to do it. And I said, why me? And the 3 excuses were: round 1, a lot of training. You're the best trainer in the organization. Number 2, a lot of travel. You love to travel. Number 3, a lot of corporate reports quarterly, substantiating what we're doing, highlighting what we're doing, measuring what we're doing. Then finally she came clean and said, because you're Black and we want a Black person of color heading our initiative. I didn't take it right away. I need to think about it for a number of reasons, but I did take it. And I'm glad I did it. And it's been part of one of the offerings that my organization provides for organizations who are serious about DE&I. I turn work down. I don't want to be an event. I don't want to be a check off, we did it. I want organizations who are serious, going to roll up their sleeves, do some heavy lifting. And if it means saying bye to people who aren't going to adhere to this new culture of inclusion, then you got to go. So I've been doing it since, and a lot of lumps, a lot of bumps, but a lot of smiles and making differences in people's lives as well.
Yeah, that's beautiful, and what a journey to get there too. It's obviously your lived experience. It's your lived story.
Yeah.
But that, I think it's also important that this, as we're both speakers, whenever you see a person who is Black or a person of color who is a speaker, there's this assumption that this is the work that they do, just because it's their lived experience. And and that is wrong. Right?
Yes.
That is wrong. It's wrong to assume that. It's wrong to immediately put those people in boxes and whatnot. And yet this is something that you have decided to do. It's not everybody's journey. And you also do a lot of other stuff, right? You talk about leadership, you talk about presence, you talk about, presentation skills. Like you have a whole bunch of other stuff that you also discuss, but this is a piece of the work that is your career.
It is. It's lived experience. And now as an adult, 60-year-old speaker, author, professional, every day I'm looking for the lesson. I'm looking for content. I'm looking for something to happen to me or someone else that I can chronicle, write a lesson, create a title, and now have a story. I wish growing up that I was smart enough to be looking for lessons. I remember things, but I wish I would have had my iPhone back in the 60s and 70s. And I wish I would have had my notepad out, jot down and journal. This happened on this day. This is how I felt. This is how it's contributing to my evolution. So it's a good thing my memory is still intact. But yes, lived experiences, so many. And when I'm teaching presentation skills, James, and I teach storytelling, I love storytelling. You're a masterful storyteller as well. I teach a model that's called R squared, and it stands for retell and relive. And I find that a lot of speakers, a lot of leaders, they tell stories, but they retell it. They don't relive them. And reliving them means going back to what happened. And as you're telling it, doing and saying and acting it out.
Yeah.
When I tell the story about my dad staggering down 46th Street, I don't say my dad was staggering down 46th Street until he got home. But my dad, and then he would eventually get to I become my dad. I relive it. And when you relive it, the emotions are greater. The audience better connects with you because, catch this, they can see what you're saying.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure you at least once have said to someone, you see what I'm saying? You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So as a storyteller, I want people to feel, see, and hear what I'm saying.
Yeah. Yeah, that's incredible. And you've already obviously demonstrated that even on our time here in the diner, the way that you, the way that you weave a tapestry with your words and paint these beautiful pictures. Yeah, it's incredible. You do truly bring people in. It's one thing I wanted to ask you about is that there's something that potentially could be seen as contradictory in what you've been talking about your upbringing, about if you want it, you could be it. If you need it, it's about the will, it's about the determination to be able to get out, to be able to do the things you want to do. One thing that you often hear when people talk about diversity, equity, inclusion work, that is the opposite sometimes of that work, is the pick me up by our bootstraps kind of thing, mentality. And I would love to hear you kind of talk about the difference between those two, why that's such a problematic thing to tell people, just, well, pick yourself up by your bootstraps and just go and do it, right? Like, what's the difference between that mentality versus what you're talking about, which is you got to set a goal and you got to try to reach it with everything. Because there's a difference between those two that I think is important for us to highlight.
I've heard that shared a number of times, and I chuckle because everyone's accountable for what they do based on what has happened. We might not be in control of what per se happens to us, the weather or so forth, but we're in control of how we handle that. And that's the bootstrap mindset for me and what I coach others on. Play the hand that you're dealt. Now, first of all, you might have to get some boots to strap them, or get some boots and then get the straps. And strapping up your boots, acknowledge that your path to the goal may be more challenging. So it's not just a matter of picking yourself up. To me, it's a matter of consistently picking yourself up. Mm-hmm. The parallel in football, they have what's called the YAC, Y-A-C. The YAC stands for yards after contact. So once you catch the ball or run the ball, once you're hit, how many yards do you get after contact? For me, that's the same with pulling yourself by your bootstrap. How far do you go after you've been hit with microaggressions, hit with prejudice, hit with all the isms? And folks who, yes, still pull themselves up by their bootstraps. And these are folks who I'm saying that don't come from underrepresented groups. Mm-hmm. Many don't acknowledge that they don't face the same level of challenge that others are. Because I have white friends who say, I was pulled over, but were you afraid to die? Yeah, right. You were pulled over, and okay, officer, what do you want? I'm pulled over, hands on the wheel, officer, my hands are up here. I'll tell you one more, James. I have two sons, one 29, one 16. One's my bonus son. I never say stepson. One's my biological son. They both are autistic. They both are nonverbal. And if you round autistic folks from time to time, depending on where they are on the spectrum, they might move back and forth. They may stem. They may go, And during this one drive home with the oldest in the front and the youngest in the back, I think the oldest was maybe early 20s at this point. My other son was less than 10, I believe. And I'm driving and I see the light. the police officer's car. Like, oh my gosh. So I pulled over and I'm thinking, this may not have a happy ending. I have my sons here. They might start making noise. The officer might become afraid and shoot first, ask questions second.
Mm-hmm.
And when he pulled us over and I rolled my window down, he came up and he said, can I see your license? And, officer, before I give you my license, I have my two sons. They're both autistic, nonverbal. They may start moving. And I just wanted to let you know. Just wanted to let you know that might happen. And he said, okay, check my license. And basically said, just check your tail light. It's out. You need a new one. Be safe. I'm going to pray for you and your sons. I didn't see that coming.
Yeah. Right.
White police officer. And I was extremely, call it a tension convention. There's a lot of tension there as he pulled up because 3 black guys in the car and 2 were acting up. And I go back to your original question, the whole bootstraps. It's a fallacy to believe that life is the same for all groups.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, having a phenomenal, sick, ridiculous work ethic is beneficial for everybody. For some, having that ridiculous work ethic, that indefatigable zeal for work where you're tireless and you're always there, sometimes it's not enough. It's not enough. We say that when things happen to you, sometimes it's comparable to a vector, a force with movement in direction, but you can't see it. And for some, the vector feels like a tailwind pushing you. And for others, the tailwind, the vector feels like a headwind. You're walking into it. You get there eventually, but it's slower, but you feel it, but you can't see it. And that's why when you say to your leadership, I'm working hard, I'm doing the same thing, but it's not happening for me. Keep working hard. And others, wow, how'd you get that? I'm working hard. No, something else is there. You live with a tailwind. That's just my philosophy on pulling up from bootstraps and making the assumption that if I give my best, I'm going to get my best. I believe that when you give your best, you create possibilities for amazing things to happen. And I live my life that way. And when I do workshops and I speak to high schools and college students, I tell them, don't blame the culture. Don't blame the economy. Don't blame the world. Shake them up. Give them something to think about. Be the first, be the pioneer, and then pave the way for others to join you at the party.
Mm. Yeah. First off, I didn't expect a physics lesson dropping vectors in here, but I love that analogy, right? Where as someone who was born, straight white, with more than enough, in this, a safe suburban town, right? Like I most certainly had a tailwind, right? And I had parents that told me to live and follow my dreams. And I could do that without having to worry about true failure because there was stability around me, right? There's other people when they follow their dreams, when they fail, it looks a lot different than if I had failed.
Yeah.
And it's not to say that my parents would have, funded me or whatnot. They would have told me to get my shit together still. But right. But they could take me back in for a little while. They could take me, yeah, it's just different, right? And that privilege is sometimes a tailwind in those situations. So I appreciate you articulating that, because that's something that you always hear, just pick yourself up by your bootstraps and figure it out. And like, well, there's other things at play, and two people working at the exact same tenacity, that look differently may wind up at two different places because of that. And so
You're spot on.
Beautifully
You're spot
put.
on.
Beautifully
this
put.
is Women's History Month. You do your most recent research on the economy and income, and you'll see that women still make 82 cents to every man's dollar, doing the same job.
Yep.
Same job.
we thought about doing a gender reveal because first off, those are problematic, but that's fine. But we thought about doing a gender reveal where we would have a piggy bank. And if it's a boy, there'd be $1, and if it was a girl, there'd be 82 cents in there. But then our son came out. We're like, that hits different because it's a boy. But if it was a girl, that would, I think we would have done that.
now, when he grows up, he's probably going to miss curfew a few times, and you're going to say, "Come on, man, get it right." Mm-hmm. Let her miss curfew. You're grounded for 3 years. Get in the house before midnight. Your son, make a muscle. You're strong. Words don't hurt. Big boys don't cry. Come here, baby. Come on, sweetheart, princess. You're going to be okay. What are we doing and how we're raising and coaching and, quote, grammatically incorrect, but I love it anyway. And that is, they become who you be. So as you are being, they are becoming. So how are you treating them and what are they turning into? Someone who's going to run through walls or someone who's going to make sure everyone is taken care of? Providing the support, providing the shoulder. Why can't they both do both?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's real. That's real. You have all these stories, you have these experiences that you live, Dr. James, and so many of them, you still keep bringing up your dad and your mom and the way that you were raised. I'm wondering, how does it shape who you are today as a parent? When you think about showing up as yourself as a parent, how you mentioned that just because I saw this doesn't mean that's who I'm going to be, right? I made the choice. But there were parts of your dad that you absolutely loved, and there's parts of your mother that you love. There's also parts of your mom that you say were like, "Oh, those are tough," right? She was super tough on me. And yes, you could see the benefits of that as an adult, but you can also see some of the stories that you started to write about yourself as a child as well that you have had to work through. And so as someone who's a new father, I'm always intrigued by asking this question of how did some of those stories shape who you are today as a parent?
I'll give you a couple examples. Number one, and this is an example where my wife and I would sometimes vehemently disagree on how our younger guy should be raised. I mean, he was 2 and 3 years old, and she was holding his hands going up and down the stairs. I'm like, he could walk. He's on the spectrum, but he can walk. Let him walk. Let him learn. Let him fall down. No, he doesn't need to fall down. I learned from falling down. Mm-hmm. I wanted him, even though he was nonverbal, he's still, God willing, would grow up into a fine man who knows how to navigate steps, navigate the house without having a coach or having someone with him all the time. And I think about my daughter, who is now 26 years old. She just joined the company. Yay. Just got married last year. Yay. When I think about how she grew up, private schools, Montessori school. And then when she got to 9th grade, my wife at the time and I, who were going through a divorce, business was slow, and we did not have enough money to keep her in private school. Mm-hmm. I wanted to meet my ex halfway, and she wanted me to pay for the entire thing. Had the conversation with my daughter, told her that, she's going to have to go to public school. And she said, "Daddy, let's give it a try. I've never been in public school, but let's give it a try." And after the first year is over, it's time for 10th grade. Business has turned around. I'm ready to put her into private school. I can pay for the whole thing. And she said, "Daddy, I want to stay in public school. This is the real world. I'm learning about life. Where in the private school, we get everything. We have the best of everything. I lived that life. And I'm usually the only Black person at the school. This school is diverse. It's character building. I'm not a big person on campus, but I need to be grounded." I think I cried. I called it a tissue issue. A tissue issue. Like, look at her. She wants the test. so that she can have a testimony. She wants the mess to help with her message. And there's no secret that she's working for me now. She's doing all of our social media. And if she makes a post and I don't say, baby girl, that was awesome, you're like, hold up. Was it good? Was it bad? Talk to me. Communicate. You're an English major, right? So my parenting, and by and large, is a product of how I was raised. Mm-hmm. And I had to check myself a few times because if my daughter brought home straight A's and a B, my focus would be on the B rather than the straight A's. And that's right from how I was raised. So I made some adjustments, but yeah, it played a role in how I parent, how I lead, how I coach, what I share with my audience members and customers. Stop whining. Mm-hmm. I'm reminded about when Kobe and Shaq were at practice, and Shaq was upset because Kobe kept shooting the ball. And he said, Kobe, there's no I in team. And Kobe said, I know, but there's an I in win. So I'm going to help us win.
Oh, no.
So I have to realize, and I coach my daughter, if it's going to happen, yes, you want to be part of a team, but you play a key role in being accountable for what you're responsible for. And we don't do victim vocabulary. We don't say the word try. We don't say one day, eventually, sometimes when I get around to it, we say now, get it done now. Always work on your TAN. And TAN is TAN, and it stands for take action now.
As a white boy, I need to work on my TAN in multiple ways.
Wow.
Yeah, I love that. And hearing how some of those things from your youth, how they drove that. And even now, as you are successful, right? You have more than enough food or money to put food on the table, and right, your daughter's wedding was beautiful, and you were able to help out, and like all the right, like I mean, it was incredible, right? That you've built a life that is different than the one that you knew. And you've built this safe place to be able to raise children with special needs in the most supportive way possible. Because it takes a little more time, takes a little more money, takes a little more resources in order to truly be able to take care of those folks the way they need to be taken care of.
Patience and prayer are significant as well.
Yeah, for sure. Patience, prayer, and paper.
He's on a roll. He's on a roll. You can't stop him. Get out of his way.
That's it. I must be butter, baby. So, but right, you've been able to build this, and that's incredible. And so the last thing that I want to talk to you about is something that we're both passionate about, which is authenticity. And not everybody gets to show up and be their authentic self. Because for whatever reason, they need to either they've written a story themselves of I need to do this in order to fit in, or society has written the story for them of like, hey, if you could code switch a little bit and talk a little bit more like this or dress a little more like that, then you'll probably be able to have your hair look more like this, and you'll probably be able to get a little bit further or make some more people feel quote unquote comfortable so that they can see you as X, Y, or Z, right? Women have to do this a lot. And obviously people of color for sure have to do this. People who are who love people of their same gender have to do this, right? Like, so authenticity is fascinating, something that we're both very passionate about. And you've been able to cultivate a life where you are now allowed to live out loud. And you've created a successful business where you are the CEO and the owner. So you've been able to create a business and a life where you are allowed to show up authentic wherever you want. But that hasn't always been like that. And so, I'm wondering, authenticity is a gift to be able to just show up as you are. But it bothers me that it's something that has to be earned for some folks. How would you speak to that?
Yeah. When I started my research on authenticity, I did it because a lot of the participants during my sessions would say, I'm one way at home and I'm one way at work. And I wondered, why couldn't they be one way all the time? And actually, I thought they were chickening out. And I wasn't thinking about the number of years in corporate where I went along. They go along to get along. I just went along. I didn't speak truth to power because I thought if I did, exit interview, HR, and I'm gone. I kept my mouth shut a lot. But I kept having that premonition around, explore this thing called authenticity. Well, I did. And after years of studying, I graduated thinking that authenticity wasn't a matter of either or, authentic or inauthentic. It was a matter of degrees of authenticity, more or less. And given the situation, you either turned up or turned down. Because I don't believe, based on my research, that we can say that we are authentic or we are inauthentic. I believe we can say I was authentic in that moment, but I may not be as authentic the next time. James, if you asked me what I did over the weekend and I said, just chill, I can give you more authenticity. I chilled with 3 guys. I sat at the pool. I had some IPAs and some suicidally hot wings. I can fill in the blanks.
Yeah.
But I believe that being your best you means being more authentic most of the time. It means speaking truth to power. It means recognizing that sometimes that truth to power is going to come with a penalty, because wherever you shared your truth, they didn't want to hear it. So now you're wounded. However, if you're really your best, the majority of the time you learn to walk with the wound. You're lighter when you share your truth more. You don't feel all that tension and heaviness. Because listen, a baseball from Game 7 of the World Series, that's authentic ball. It's not changing. A Persian rug, jewelry, a painting, that's authentic. But we as adults evolve and become every day. Given your circumstance, given the situation, I encourage you to consider when and where can I be more authentic. And if I can't be it here, I'm not going to blame them. I'm going to go someplace where I can be. And eventually that's what led me to starting my own business. And funny, during my research, I talked to a lot of senior leaders, asking them on a scale of 1 to 10, how authentic are you on a daily basis? 1 being terrible and 10 being phenomenal. You are the authentic whisperer. Some of them said 3 and 4. And they're senior leaders. So I don't give you everything you want. Sometimes I give you what you want to hear. I'm probably more authentic one-on-one than I am standing in front of the entire organization or during a town meeting. I share what I believe you need to hear. I'm thinking, oh, wow. So they're 3 or 4, and they're senior leaders. And you have people from underrepresented groups who cover, and they're 3 and 4. This workplace is full of trick-or-treaters. Every day is Halloween, where people are putting on masks and trick-or-treating for performance and results.
Yeah.
So I strongly encourage people, know that speaking up, Colin Kaepernick taking a knee, could cost you your career. It could. You have to determine what's best for you, to share your truth, to be the best possible version of you as often as possible, or as they say, go along and get along. Fake it till you make it. What? And yes, people still do that. So I think authenticity is a phenomenal construct. I'm going to continue to encourage people to be the best versions of themselves as often as possible. But really defining it and living it is like picking up a bar of soap in the shower. It's tough to grasp because we live in a world where coaches, politicians, teachers, sports reporters, journalists, they don't always share their truth. Mm-hmm. James, you're the coach of the Gosh, the Los Angeles Rams Super Bowl just 2 weeks ago. Who did they beat? Who did the Rams just beat in the Super Bowl?
Bengals?
The Bengals with Icky Woods. No, Icky played in the day. But the Bengals coach, they interviewed him. So what happened in the game? Coach, what happened in the game? I have to do a better job of putting my team in position to win. In the locker room, what happened? You dropped that ball. You fumbled. In front of the camera, I have to do a better job to help our team win. It was my fault. I didn't call the right plays. Hey, come on, dude. But he knows if he comes clean, if he throws his player under the bus, the media is going to kill him, and they're going to kill him for not sharing his truth. He's going to lose his teammate, going to lose the trust. So in actuality, how authentic can we be on a daily basis?
Mm-hmm.
It's up to the individual.
Yeah. Yes, I love the idea that it's authentic moments.
Yes.
Right? Authentic moments as opposed to, consistently living authenticity. I mean, this is a game out here, right? The workplace is a game, politics is a game, social life is a game. And you have to play it. The more authentically you can play it,
yes,
the happier you are, the lighter you are, and whatnot. But at the same time, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, safety and security are at the bottom. And if you don't feel safe, if you don't feel secure, then you're not getting this authenticity. Right? Like I'm going to act in accordance in a way that I believe will be the safest for me right now. It's a basic human need. It's a gut. It's an instinct. And it's powerful the way that you phrase that. And I loved hearing you talk about it. Thank you.
You're welcome. And you and I know full well in this digital age we're living in, where people have done their research on us and they know more about us and our family before we say, welcome to the opportunity, welcome to my presentation. The world doesn't want phony, fake, or pretend speakers. They can see right through that. They want us to live what we give. Mm-hmm. And if we don't, it's going to bite us in the butt. People are very learned and sharper these days, and they can smell ambiguity. They can smell fake. They can smell pretend like that. And what might have worked for us in the past, there's too much technology. There's too much information out there to get us to continue. It'll come back. Yeah. It'll come back to bite us.
You're right. You're right. Dr. James Smith Jr., it has been a pleasure. My
James
friend.
Robo. I truly mean this. You hear it from everybody. My brother from another mother, my sister from another mister. Listen, your name is James. I'm James. You are my brother from another mother.
Honored. Honored. Yeah, I felt an instant connection with you. And if I had any questions, the hug sealed it.
Now, what would have happened if I would have hugged you and started patting on you and back like you're my grandson?
I would have walked away with my tail between my legs. Dr. James Smith, can you let people know where can they find you? How can people stay in touch with you if they want to learn more about the work that you do in this world?
Absolutely. All social media at Dr. James Smith Jr. Website, drjamessmithjr.com. Website, that's the website, social media, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Dr. James Smith Jr. I think I'm going to add to it, hashtag the diner's favorite diner. I might add that to it because I'm loving dining with the king of diners, James Robo. Yes.
I respect it. I think it's great. I'm here for it. It's so great hanging out with you. Thank you for your stories. Thank you for your wisdom. Thank you for your truth. Thanks for just dropping a lot of great nuggets on us today. It's so fun kicking it with you. I appreciate you coming to the diner, my man.
James Robo, can I drop one more real quick?
Let's go.
Quote, you'll always get what you've always gotten until you become the person you've never been. It's time for you to be that person. That's it. Go be that person.
Go be that person. Yes, sir. Thank you so much. Y'all, that was Dr. James Smith Jr. coming in the diner and shutting it down, y'all. That was incredible. So many stories, so many rhyming. I got a tissue issue. I'm at a tension convention. I don't even know. I can't even think of all the other ones, but there's a bunch of them. And the wordplay was on point. And more importantly, the wisdom was there. And just the way that he spoke about things that we normally talk about, whether it's, whenever we see someone who's a little bit different than us, grew up different than us, loves a little different than us, and we can't just tell that person to just figure it out and pick you up by the bootstrap. There's different forces at play in that, and thinking about the vector, the tailwind, the headwind that some people face based on how they came up and what they look like and how they love and how they believe is powerful. Thinking about authenticity. And that you can be authentic in certain moments, but maybe you can't be authentic at all times. This is why we love spending time with the people that we love, because we don't have to think about things. And in other areas of life, we do need to think about how we show up and how it's going to impact us and what are people going to think about us. And just so many nuggets in here. I hope that you all have hanging out with Dr. James Smith Jr. as much as I did. And friends, until next time, do me a favor, keep punching small talk in the face by asking better questions. You all take